guys, and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is my third video ever. As you can tell from the title of this video, it's going to be about how I ended up stuck in Africa for 3 years, y'all. So I'm gonna try to make this video quick just because I'm actually on my way out to the beach with my friend. I know my makeup looks kind of really dark for the beach. I think I'm actually gonna end up like taking off some of it, like probably the dark under eye, because it's just really dramatic for the beach. And I also don't want to be like super caked up at the beach. Funny enough, I actually seen this like TikTok where this girl was like, it's hot as fuck, and if you're still wearing makeup in this weather, you're an ugly ass fucking bitch. And I was like, God damn, whatever, because I know I'm a bad bitch, period. And you know, women wear makeup because we want to, not because we feel like we have to. But anyway, onto the story. So I ended up, actually in my first video, I mentioned how I lived in Africa from age 14 to 17. So that's really what this story is, how I ended up living in Africa for ages 14 to 17. So I also mentioned in my first video that I come from a really like religious, very like strict African Muslim household. So that plays like a huge part in this story. When I mentioned that I was born in New Jersey. When I was 6 years old, we moved to Hartford, Connecticut. And I went to most of my middle school years there. And I was like a really like academic student. Like I loved writing, reading. Like I actually took pride in being like smart, and I didn't know anything about like being fashionable, or like I just wasn't into stuff like that. And it also wasn't like introduced to me because, again, strong, like very strict Muslim household. So I was actually like surrounded by like people covering up constantly. And on top of that, like my parents didn't really, I wasn't around black culture pretty much. I was around African Muslim culture. My parents didn't listen to like, you know, 90s music. So I was really just like out of the mix. I didn't know anything about that. When I went to school, it was really solely about school. It wasn't about like my hair or my clothes or anything like that. And you know, it wasn't a problem until so age 10, right? I mentioned, no, my bad. I mentioned age 6, we moved to Hartford, Connecticut from Newark, New Jersey. So we were in Hartford, Connecticut for about like 6 more years. Probably 4 years actually. 4 years we were in Hartford, Connecticut. So when I was about age 10, we moved to East Hartford, Connecticut. So, or I'm tripping. No, age 10 I was still in Hartford. So when I was about age 12, we moved to East Hartford, Connecticut. So when we moved there, I ended up going to this school called Sunset Ridge, and it was an all 6th grade school. It was my first time even like experiencing anything like that. But basically, like my school life changed. That's when like I started getting bullied, and there will be more stories on that. I'm not gonna go too much into the fact that I was bullied, but just know that I was bullied. 6th grade, I didn't really do much about it. 7th grade, I didn't really do much about it. But then 8th and 9th grade, I was tearing up. Like I was like, honestly, I was really just fighting people for no reason. Getting in arguments with people. I'm pretty sure nobody fucking liked me. Like, and I didn't know how to adjust. I was never a fighter, to be honest. And I was never a bully. So yeah, I basically started fighting everybody. I was an angry child. And My parents, of course, started noticing. At first, the first fight I ever got into, my mom was like, okay, I guess, like, defend yourself. But I would come back to her and be like, hey, like, I'm getting, like, bullied. And my mom was really religious, so her answer was always like, oh, like, pray about it. Or like, oh, like, don't listen to them, like, they're lying, or what they're saying is not true, you're not ugly. But, like, that wasn't enough for me. Like, it wasn't building up any, like, confidence or anything. So I ended up, like, fighting a lot, just being angry. And around this time too, I think I'm like age 14 by this time. So Sunset Ridge was 6th grade, I was 12. 9th grade, 14 was when, like, I ended up getting shipped off. So 8th grade was just really bad. I was just in fights back to back to back, suspended multiple times. But then 9th grade, I'd actually calmed down a little bit, but I think I ended up getting into like 2 fights, and there will be story times on that too. Even though I don't remember all the details anyway, but I ended up getting into 2 fights and like a few scuffles here and there. But I guess my mom, what she ended up telling me years later was that the principal came and told her, like, if I got into another fight, that I was going to be expelled from the school or whatever. So, the fights were going on, that was happening, but I was also getting, like, interested in boys. And if you are African like me and, from a Muslim household like me, then that's a big no-no. So a situation ended up happening. I mean, a few situations happened where my parents, like, noticed my interest in boys and it was, like, unacceptable to them. The final instance was with, like, my first actual boyfriend ever. It ended up getting back to my mom that, like, I'd been to this guy's house. That is another story time. I will go into the details on that. But it ended up getting back to my mom that I was at this guy's house, and I really do think that was the final straw for them. That, like, my interest in boys, me being around boys at age 14, as well as the fights that I was getting into. So I remember it was the end of 9th grade, and I was actually in the middle of taking, like, my finals, like, for the end of the year. And my mom, like, just comes up one day and she's like, we're gonna go to Africa. We're gonna go on vacation. And I was like, I mean, you sure? Because, I'm in the middle of taking these tests. We're going right now? And she was like, yeah, like, we're going right now. Like, probably, like, literally a week later, we was out. And I was like, and I remember, too, my cousin was staying there with us at the time. He was an older cousin, and he had been through some things. And I remember him telling me not to go. But I was like, nah, they don't have to do that. Like, I mean, I just didn't even, I don't know why, but I didn't think it could happen to me. So we end up, going to Africa. It was actually just me and my mom to begin with. So my siblings, I have 3 other siblings, and my dad, they all stayed at home. So it was just me and my mom that went the first time. And we're there for like 2 weeks. I remember we touched down and I'm looking around like, does everybody have cancer? Because why doesn't anybody have hair? And that's like a cultural thing there. Like, they believe that, like, hair distracts you from, like, your schoolwork. So girls and boys were, like, bald-headed. Like, when I went to school there, it was so bad, like, teachers would literally come up and grip your hair with 2 fingers. And if they could hold your hair with 2 fingers, then to them, you had too much hair. But I'm sidetracking. So we touched down. We're there for like 2 weeks. And we're actually staying with my dad's sister. And it wasn't my first time meeting her, but I didn't really know this lady well. She lived in Africa. She would sometimes, travel to the US to visit, but I didn't know her that well. I knew her kids. It was her son, my cousin, that was the one staying with us that told me not to go. So, we're there. In my head, it's my first time meeting her because the other few times I met her, I don't remember. I was a child. And again, I'm like age 14. So we're there. My mom is like showing me around. It's just such a different environment and like culture. First of all, it was hot as hell. And I remember one time when I first got there, the mosquitoes was tearing my ass up. And you know, they brought me like this like net that was like medicated, and it was supposed to stop mosquitoes from like biting you or whatever. But my dumb ass slept with the net on my body, and the medication seeped into my skin. I was itchy and like burning for like 2 weeks. But anyway, you know, we're there, you know, seeing like the scenery and the different types of food, and the way like people speak differently, and just everything is just so different. And my mom is like, you know, showing me around. She's letting me meet her relatives or whatever. So I'm thinking, okay, this is cool. Like, I guess this is the motherland. Okay. 2 weeks in. Oh, I forgot to mention too, my aunt, she owned a school. And it's a different setup over there. Like, it's not like schools here. It was a private school. I don't know if you guys can hear my cat, Chloe. I stuck her in the bathroom because over here she has like this little scratch post, and I sat down to make this video, and she was just doing a lot. So if you guys hear my cat meowing in the bathroom, she just has an attitude. I'll introduce y'all to Chloe later. So I was saying, what was I saying? I was saying, fuck. Excuse my language. Fuck. Oh, man. Okay, back to the program. I was saying that my aunt owned a school, and it's a different setup. It was a private school, and it was actually literally in her house. So like the way most homes are set up, if you have some type of money, and it's crazy actually how like you'll see like poverty right next to like money. But if you have some type of money, then when you have a house, you also have like a compound or a gate, because there are thieves, and the police system there is not the same. So you need to protect yourself. So the school is actually literally in her house. She had like, you know, her compound or whatever. She had her home, and then she had like a building that was an actual school, and it was actually fairly big. She kind of set it up where it was around the school. So like the school was like this, and like her house was like here. It was large. So, you know, I remember meeting all the students in the school, and some of them actually stayed in the house, like it was a boarding school. So some of them actually lived there, and some of them she kind of took in as her own, because like, let's say like their mother worked for them, and they were like, their mother worked for her, and they were like maybe like poor. So she would do for them. She liked to do that. So I remember meeting these kids in the house, and I remember telling them like, yeah, I'm gonna be going back to America soon. Like, you know, I'm not from here. And clearly I had an accent too. And I remember people were, like when I got there, people would be like, why are you slurring? And I was like, the fuck? Like, you're slurring. Like, bro, what are you saying? Half the time I was like, what are you saying? But they was really coming at me like, why are you slurring? And I'm just looking at them like, this is my language. Like, the fuck? How you gonna tell me I'm slurring? But you know, I remember telling them, I'm gonna be out of here soon. So like, nice to meet you, but like, don't get too comfortable. Like, and I really think they knew before I knew. Like, so 2 weeks goes by, and then one day, you know, my mom is like, she wants to pull me aside. She wants to have a conversation. Then she was just kind of like, how would you feel if you stayed here? And I was like, what? like what? I just remember being like, huh? Like, wait, like if we stayed here together? And I was like, absolutely not. Like, and I didn't realize that she wasn't asking. Like, she was just like, well, you know, that's the decision I've made. You're gonna stay here. You're gonna stay here. You're gonna go to school here. I literally like got on my knees, like, and I was begging this woman, like, please don't leave me here, please. Bro. You know, she ended up telling me, yeah, I'm leaving, you're staying. I had like a huge emotional like breakdown or whatever. She didn't leave immediately after. I think she stayed like another 2 more weeks. I remember the day that she left was also a very emotional day for me.
I'm really just talking about how I started going to school not too much later, but I wanted to insert pics of the schools that I went to. I went to 2 different schools while I lived there.
That I was at, they did have like some American students. It was more of like an expensive school, so there was more like foreigners there. Even though I still could have been in a even, better environment. You know what's crazy actually? What's crazy is that my mom had a cousin. So like the aunt that I stayed with was my dad's sister. But my mom had a cousin that was like rich as fuck. Like, we actually went to visit her in the 2 weeks that my mom had been there. And I remember getting to the house like, wow, this is nice. Like, if I stayed here, I wouldn't be mad. It was beautiful. Like, this lady, she's still rich as fuck. She had like a maid, like just a pool, like just, it was just luxury, just money. Like, and now she has even more money. Like, I still don't really know what this lady does. But anyway, like, but my mom didn't want me to stay there. My mom wanted me to stay with my aunt who had significantly less money. And like, Africa was different in the sense that like, electricity would turn off, sometimes the water would turn off, and you have to have things like a generator, and access to like a well, or like, whatever. And then the internet too was like shady, and you had to like recharge the internet. It's still that way today, because it's still that way. You have to like buy internet and like recharge it, like credit. They called it credit. So, but yeah, my mom wanted me to live in that environment because she wanted me to see how she grew up, and she wanted me to like learn humility and like, basically that like I had it kind of easy in the world. I definitely learned that. I absolutely did, because was my time in Africa like, do I regret going? I mean, do I regret getting stuck? I mean, honestly, it's not really anything for me to regret or not. Okay, so I was saying, do I regret going? And basically, it's not anything for me to regret going. Like, it's not anything for me to regret just because it wasn't my choice. Did I learn from the experience? Absolutely. And was it an awful time? No. Like, I met my best friend there. I met my first love there. Like, and I actually recommend, if you're like of African descent, or like if you're African like me but just have never been, that you go, because it's like so much to see, it's so much to learn. It was absolutely an experience. I saw a different way of life. So I will always like remember my time there. And in my adult life, it's lit. Like, it's a good time as an adult, so I recommend everybody to go. But I think the biggest takeaway I took from that experience was that I wanted to forever be in control of my own life. The fact that it wasn't my choice affected me so much. Like, and I'm realizing it now, like in my adult age, that like that really messed me up. And that aside though, Africa is a beautiful place. Ghana is a beautiful place, though it is an adjustment. It is a way of life. Would I live there? I actually contemplated this, a few months ago, as well as like, I've gone on and off about contemplating this. But the only reason why I contemplated it was because of the people that I grew to love there. Like, it wasn't because of like the environment or like the food or anything like that. It was just because, like, again, I met my bestest friend there. I met my first love there, like, and they were like my most intense loves. So when I would contemplate doing that, one, for business, because I felt like I could be really successful there, and two, because my like biggest loves live there. So, well, not anymore. The guy is not my love no more. The girl is still my best friend. I still love her. Rachel, shout out to Rachel. So, okay, well, anyway, that concludes this is the end of, you know, the time I got left in Africa for 3 years story. Obviously there's so many stories within that time frame. My camera keeps turning off because like it keeps saying my fucking storage is full, but I already fucking updated my iCloud and I have like the Dropbox and stuff, so I just don't know what to do for more storage. I've Googled this, so if you guys know, can you please drop some advice down in the comments, because it's just so frustrating. But anyway, I was saying that obviously there's so much more stories like within my time frame in Africa, so I will be back with more story times on that. In the meantime, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next YouTube video. Thank you.